It's like an sound. Can you see something blue looking at me? I think Charles needs to put on it. He looks so ugly. And he looks like a monkey.
The hospital room fell silent as doctors examined 8-year-old Rica Rountree's small, broken body. Under the harsh lights, the truth became impossible to ignore. Over 50 separate bruises, scars, and wounds mapped a history of prolonged torture. Her final injury, a ruptured intestine caused by a brutal kick to her stomach, had triggered fatal peritonitis. As medical staff documented each mark, the evidence told a devastating story. This child had endured months of deliberate, methodical abuse, while every system designed to protect her had failed. Every day in America, 5 children die from abuse and neglect. 5 young lives extinguished, often after multiple warning signs went unheeded. 5 families shattered forever. Rica Rountree became one of those statistics in January 2019. Have you ever wondered how abuse could continue despite teachers, neighbors, or relatives noticing something wrong? Has your community experienced a similar tragedy where intervention came too late? Do you know the warning signs that might save a child's life? If you care about protecting the most vulnerable among us, hit subscribe now and turn on notifications. This channel exposes these critical stories so we can all become better advocates for children who cannot speak for themselves. Rica's story reveals a catastrophic breakdown in protection at every level. A father who chose his girlfriend over his daughter's safety. A woman who inflicted calculated cruelty on a defenseless child. School officials who reported suspicious injuries. Child welfare workers who closed investigations prematurely. Police who responded to the home multiple times. By examining Rica's case in detail, we expose not just individual monsters, but the collective failures that allowed this tragedy to unfold. Her story matters because these same dangers exist in communities nationwide. The systemic gaps that failed Rica continue to threaten countless children today. This isn't simply a tale of horror, it's a vital lesson in vigilance and accountability. Through Rica's story, we'll identify crucial warning signs, examine how predators isolate their victims, and reveal how seemingly minor oversights can combine with devastating consequences. Most importantly, we'll discover what must change to prevent future tragedies. Rica J. Rountree entered the world on April 16, 2010, born into circumstances that foreshadowed her tragic future. From her earliest days, stability remained elusive. Her mother, Ann Simmons, struggled with personal challenges that repeatedly brought her into conflict with the law. Her father, Richard Rountree, demonstrated inconsistent presence in her life, creating an environment where security was never guaranteed. Those who knew Rica described a bright, affectionate child with expressive eyes and a love for learning. School records indicate she performed well academically despite her tumultuous home life, a testament to her resilience. Teachers noted she often arrived eager to participate in classroom activities, finding refuge in education from the chaos that characterized her home environment. The fractures in Rica's family structure became increasingly apparent during her preschool years. Neighbors reported frequent arguments between her parents, with police responding to domestic disturbance calls multiple times. Child welfare officials made their first documented visit when Rica was just 3 years old, following reports of neglect. Though this investigation closed without action, it marked the beginning of a troubling pattern. By age 5, Rica became the center of a bitter custody dispute. Court records reveal Ann Simmons faced multiple legal troubles, including arrests for substance offenses. The state considered these issues significant enough to question her ability to provide adequate care. Meanwhile, Richard Rountree presented himself as the stable alternative, securing character witnesses who testified to his capability as a parent. The court awarded Richard primary custody in 2016, a decision that fundamentally altered Rica's fate. Within months, Richard introduced Cynthia Baker into the household, a relationship that quickly became permanent when Baker moved in with her own children. What followed was a calculated shift in Rica's treatment within the home hierarchy. Former neighbors later testified that Rica's place in the household dynamic changed noticeably after Baker's arrival. While Baker's biological children enjoyed privileges and affection, Rica increasingly became isolated. School photographs from this period reveal a transformation. Her once bright smile faded, replaced by a guarded expression that hinted at her deteriorating circumstances. The initial months living under Baker's influence introduced Rica to a new reality of strict punishments and harsh discipline targeted specifically at her. Former babysitters reported overhearing Baker refer to Rica as problematic and difficult to control, language that contrasted sharply with teachers' descriptions of a sweet, compliant child eager to please adults. By second grade, Rica's new family arrangement had solidified into a dangerous environment where abuse could flourish unchecked, with her father consistently siding with Baker over his daughter's well-being. This crucial transition period established the power dynamics that would ultimately lead to her death. The documented abuse of Rica began during her second grade year. Teachers at Cedar Ridge Elementary first noted unusual bruising on Rica's arms in October 2018. When questioned, Rica offered rehearsed explanations. She fell off her bike, bumped into furniture, or injured herself playing. Her accounts lacked consistency, raising concerns among the school staff. School nurse Valerie Brunswick documented over a dozen separate injury reports during a 3-month period. "The frequency troubled me," she later testified. "Children get hurt, but not with this pattern." Brunswick's records show Rica arrived with bruises in locations atypical for normal childhood accidents. Marks on her upper arms suggested someone had grabbed her forcefully, while bruises on her back couldn't be explained by typical falls. By November 2018, Rica's behavior shifted dramatically. Once outgoing and engaged, she became withdrawn and anxious. Her teacher, Marion Jeffries, noted Rica flinched when adults raised their hands near her, a classic trauma response. School counselor reports indicate Rica spent lunchtimes alone and appeared exhausted, sometimes falling asleep at her desk. The violence escalated when Rica's academic performance declined. Court evidence later revealed text messages between Baker and Richard discussing discipline methods for Rica's failing grades. These exchanges would prove crucial in establishing the deliberate nature of the abuse. December brought the first hospital visit, when Rica arrived at school with a swollen wrist. X-rays revealed a hairline fracture. Baker claimed Rica fell downstairs, but medical professionals noted the injury pattern was inconsistent with this explanation. Despite this discrepancy, no follow-up investigation occurred, a critical missed opportunity. A holiday break removed Rica from the protective oversight of school personnel. When classes resumed in January, staff immediately noticed the deterioration in her condition. Rica had lost weight, appeared perpetually exhausted, and struggled to concentrate. Her gym teacher observed Rica couldn't participate in physical activities due to pain when raising her arms or bending. In the most disturbing development, security footage from the Baker/Rountree home, later recovered by investigators, captured Baker forcing Rica to hold heavy books with her arms extended for hours as punishment. Other videos showed Rica standing naked in the cold while Baker mocked her. These disciplinary sessions increased in frequency and severity throughout December and January. The final weeks of Rica's life saw the most extreme violence. Neighbors reported hearing thuds against walls and a child crying. One witness described seeing Rica in the yard performing exercises in freezing temperatures without adequate clothing. When questioned by a concerned neighbor, Baker dismissed it as necessary training for an undisciplined child. Every adult who interacted with Rica during this period witnessed pieces of the emerging crisis. Teachers saw bruises. Doctors treated injuries. Neighbors heard cries. Yet no one connected these fragments into the complete picture of relentless abuse that would ultimately claim her life. Cynthia Baker, 30, presented two faces to the world: the charming girlfriend who won over Rica Rountree and the calculated abuser who terrorized his daughter. Public records revealed a history of volatility long before Rica entered her life. Former roommates described Baker as controlling and prone to explosive anger, particularly toward children. Court documents showed prior allegations of harsh discipline with her own children, though charges were never filed. Psychologists who evaluated Baker after Rica's death identified disturbing patterns consistent with abusive personalities. Dr. Elizabeth Harmon testified, Baker displayed classic characteristics of an abuser, maintaining a pleasant public persona while exerting extreme control in private. She targeted Rica specifically, creating a household where one child became the designated victim. Video evidence recovered from Baker's phone exposed her methodology. Rather than impulsive outbursts, her abuse followed calculated patterns designed to maximize Rica's suffering while minimizing visible evidence. She recorded these episodes not from shame, but as trophies, evidence of her power over a defenseless child. Former co-workers describe Baker as someone who cultivated an image of competence and charm. "She was the last person you'd suspect," said one colleague. She spoke about being a dedicated mother and even volunteered at community events. This carefully constructed facade allowed her abuse to continue undetected by casual acquaintances. Richard Rountree's role represented a profound betrayal of parental duty. Though he rarely administered physical abuse himself, his complicity enabled every aspect of Rica's suffering. Text messages revealed Richard not only knew about the punishments, but often suggested them, writing in one message, "Handle her however you need to, just make sure she learns." His negligence extended beyond passive awareness. Court evidence showed Richard witnessed Baker forcing Rica to stand naked while holding books. Rather than intervene, he photographed the scene. In another instance, he held Rica down while Baker disciplined her. When Rica attempted to contact her mother after particularly severe beatings, Richard confiscated her phone. What motivated Richard's betrayal of his daughter? Investigators cited his fear of losing Baker. He prioritized his relationship over his child's safety, prosecutor James Mortensen stated. In every instance where he had to choose between his girlfriend and his daughter, he chose Baker. The relationship dynamic between Baker and Richard created a destructive alliance. Baker established conditions that isolated Rica while elevating her biological children. Richard, seeking to maintain Baker's affection, participated in this uneven treatment. Together, they created an environment where abuse became normalized and resistance was punished severely. Have you noticed warning signs of abuse in your community? What subtle behaviors made you concerned about a child's welfare? Share your experiences in the comments. Your insight might help others recognize danger before it's too late. If this story affects you, please hit the like button and share it to raise awareness. The tragedy of Rica Rountree exists not just in the abuse she endured, but in the numerous opportunities authorities had to intervene. Between October 2018 and January 2019, at least 11 separate incidents triggered notifications to child protection agencies, each representing a chance to save her life. Cedar Ridge Elementary faculty followed mandated reporting protocols documenting every suspicious injury. School counselor Veronica Mitchell filed 4 reports with the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, each detailing Rica's declining physical and emotional state. "We did everything within our power," Mitchell later testified. "We documented, photographed, and reported. Then we waited for action that never came." DCFS records show 3 separate investigations opened into Rica's welfare during the final 4 months of her life. The first began after her fractured wrist in December. Case files reveal troubling decisions. Investigators accepted Baker's explanations without speaking to Rica privately, failed to interview teachers who had documented concerns, and closed the case as unfounded after a single home visit. Police reports indicate officers responded to the Baker/Rountree residence twice in December 2018. Both visits stemmed from neighbor complaints about a child crying. Officers noted in their reports that they spoke with the adults while Rica remained in her room. Neither visit prompted follow-up welfare checks, despite the existing DCFS reports. The second DCFS investigation began in early January when Rica arrived at school with facial bruising. This case was assigned to an overloaded caseworker managing 41 cases, well above the recommended maximum of 15. Records show the caseworker attempted 1 home visit, found no one present, and took no further action for 12 days. By then, Rica was already fighting for her life in the hospital. A review of internal communications revealed a catastrophic bureaucratic breakdown. The 3 DCFS reports were assigned to different investigators who never shared information. School reports were filed under separate case numbers without cross-referencing. Medical records from Rica's hospital visits were never requested by investigators. Each entity possessed pieces of a puzzle that, if assembled, would have painted a clear picture of danger. Dr. Margaret Wilkins, a child welfare expert who reviewed Rica's case, identified 5 critical failure points. First, investigators accepted caregiver explanations without sufficient skepticism. Second, Rica was never interviewed alone in a safe environment. Third, the history of multiple injuries was never compiled into a comprehensive pattern. Fourth, communication between agencies was non-existent. Finally, response timelines stretched far beyond what's appropriate for urgent cases. Perhaps most disturbing was the discovery that Baker's name appeared in DCFS records from a 2016 investigation involving her biological children. Though that case closed without action, the information remained inaccessible to investigators handling Rica's reports due to outdated database systems. These systematic breakdowns created perfect conditions for Rica's abuse to continue unchecked. Each authority assumed another was taking action, creating a vacuum of accountability where no one took ultimate responsibility for her safety. The result was a fragmented response that failed to protect a child in desperate need of intervention. Rica's final week began with a school absence on Monday, January 21, 2019. Baker informed the school Rica had a stomach bug. What teachers didn't know was that Rica had already suffered a devastating internal injury that would prove fatal. Home security footage later recovered by investigators showed the events of the previous weekend. On Saturday evening, Baker became enraged when Rica couldn't find a candy wrapper Baker accused her of hiding. The footage captured Baker repeatedly kicking Rica in the abdomen with such force that the child flew backward against a wall. Richard witnessed the assault but did not intervene. By Sunday morning, Rica complained of severe stomach pain and vomiting. Text messages between Baker and Richard discussed Rica's symptoms but dismissed them as attention-seeking. Neither sought medical attention despite Rica's inability to keep food down and obvious distress. Monday through Wednesday, Rica remained home from school. Neighbors reported hearing crying throughout these days. One witness later testified to seeing Rica through a window, curled in a fetal position on her bedroom floor. Baker's own children later confirmed Rica received no medical care during this period, despite increasing pain and deterioration. The fatal injury had caused peritonitis, a severe infection resulting from intestinal perforation. Medical experts testified that Rica would have experienced escalating symptoms, intense abdominal pain, fever, weakness, and eventually septic shock. These symptoms would have been unmistakable to any adult observer. On Thursday morning, January 24, Rica became unresponsive. Only then did Baker call 911, claiming Rica had collapsed suddenly. Emergency responders found Rica unconscious with a body temperature of 105 degrees, clear evidence of advanced infection. Paramedic Jason Torres later testified, "The moment we saw her, we knew this wasn't a sudden collapse. This child had been critically ill for days." Rica was rushed to Carl Bromen Medical Center before being transferred to the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at OSF Children's Hospital in Peoria. Despite aggressive intervention, the infection had progressed too far. On January 26, 2019, Rica J. Rountree was pronounced dead at 7:42 a.m. The autopsy revealed the horrific extent of Rica's suffering. Medical examiner Dr. Sean Wilson documented over 50 distinct injuries in various stages of healing. These included cigarette burns on her back, belt marks across her legs, healing fractures to 3 ribs, and extensive bruising throughout her body. The cause of death was determined to be peritonitis, resulting from a torn intestine, an injury consistent with blunt force trauma to the abdomen. The medical staff who fought to save Rica were profoundly affected by the case. Nurse coordinator Melissa Davidson, who'd worked in pediatric trauma for 15 years, requested leave following Rica's death. "In all my years of emergency medicine, I've never witnessed such deliberate, prolonged cruelty inflicted on a child," she stated during later testimony. The evidence of abuse was written across every inch of her body. The investigation into Rica's death began immediately following the autopsy findings. Detectives Michael Henning and Lisa Bradford led the case, executing a search warrant at the Baker/Rountree residence on January 28, 2019. The search yielded critical evidence: home security footage, cell phones containing incriminating text messages, and items used in Rica's abuse. Cynthia Baker was arrested on February 2019, initially charged with aggravated battery to a child. As the investigation progressed and additional evidence emerged, prosecutors upgraded the charges to include first-degree murder. Richard Rountree was arrested 2 weeks later on charges of child endangerment and allowing the criminal neglect of a child resulting in death. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Eleanor Matthews, built their case methodically. "This wasn't a spontaneous act of violence," Matthews explained to jurors in her opening statement. "This was the culmination of months of escalating abuse, documented through video, photographs, and witness testimony. Central to the prosecution's case was the extensive video evidence recovered from Baker's own phone. These recordings showed Baker forcing Rica to hold books while standing naked, kicking her repeatedly and verbally berating her. In one particularly damning clip, Baker could be heard saying, "No one will believe you anyway," as Rica cried in pain. 42 witnesses testified during the 7-week trial. Teachers described Rica's deteriorating condition at school. Medical experts established the timeline of injuries and explained how Rica's final wound caused her death. Digital forensic analysts presented text messages between Baker and Richard discussing discipline methods and ignoring Rica's symptoms. Perhaps most powerful was testimony from Baker's own biological children, who described witnessing routine abuse targeted specifically at Rica. Her 10-year-old daughter testified that Rica was often denied food, forced to sleep on the floor, and subjected to punishments that the other children never experienced. Baker's defense team attempted to portray Rica's injuries as accidental or self-inflicted. This strategy collapsed when confronted with the medical evidence and video recordings. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts on November 12, 2019. At the sentencing hearing on December 10, 2019, Judge Casey Costigan delivered his ruling. The calculated and prolonged nature of this abuse, culminating in the death of an innocent child, represents the most extreme betrayal of trust imaginable. Baker received a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Rica Rountree accepted a plea agreement acknowledging his role in Rica's death. He received an 8-year prison sentence for child endangerment resulting in death, a punishment many advocates criticized as insufficient given his profound failure to protect his daughter. If this story has moved you, please hit the like button and share it to raise awareness. Together, we can ensure Rica's suffering leads to necessary changes in how we protect vulnerable children. The next time you notice warning signs, remembering Rica's story might make the difference between action and inaction. Rica Rountree's case ignited public outrage that extended far beyond McLean County, Illinois. National news outlets covered the trial extensively, with headlines focusing on both the horrific abuse and the systemic failures that allowed it to continue. Public vigils drew hundreds of participants, many of whom had never met Rica, but felt compelled to acknowledge her suffering and demand accountability. Social media campaigns under hashtags like Justice for Rica and Protect Our Children gained momentum, particularly after details of the numerous missed intervention opportunities became public. Community groups organized awareness events where child welfare experts educated parents and teachers about recognizing abuse warning signs and effective reporting procedures, and Simmons emerged as a powerful voice following her daughter's death. Though her own troubled history had cost her custody of Rica, she channeled her grief into advocacy. "I lost my daughter twice," Simmons told reporters, "first to a broken custody system, then forever to abuse that should have been prevented." She established the Rica Rountree Foundation, focusing on improving communication between agencies responsible for child welfare. Simmons' testimony before the Illinois state legislature provided emotional weight to calls for reform. "My daughter's case wasn't a failure of laws but of implementation," she argued. "Every protection Rica needed already existed on paper. What failed was the human element, the follow-through, the communication, the urgency." The impact of Rica's case on policy was swift and substantial. The Illinois legislature passed Rica's Law in 2020, implementing several crucial reforms to child protection procedures. The law mandated cross-referencing of all reports involving the same child or household, regardless of case assignment. It established maximum caseloads for investigators and required supervisory review of any case with multiple reports within a 6-month period. Perhaps most significantly, Rica's Law created a new emergency response category for cases involving multiple injury reports. Under this provision, investigators must interview the child within 24 hours and conduct a comprehensive medical examination by a child abuse specialist. The law also expanded training requirements for DCFS workers, emphasizing recognition of deceptive behaviors by abusers. Schools throughout Illinois revised their protocols in response to Rica's case. The new Connect the Dots approach required designated child safety coordinators to maintain comprehensive records of all injury reports, ensuring patterns wouldn't be missed. Training programs help teachers recognize subtle behavioral indicators of abuse beyond physical signs. McLean County transformed its child protection procedures, implementing a multi-agency response team for suspected abuse cases. This collaborative approach brought together social workers, law enforcement, medical professionals, and school representatives to share information in real time rather than through disconnected reports. BCFS internal reviews resulted in personnel changes and restructuring of the department's case management system. The outdated database that had prevented investigators from accessing Baker's prior history was replaced with an integrated system that flags connected individuals across cases. Rica's legacy lives on in these reforms, potentially saving countless children from similar fates. As one legislator noted during debate on Rica's law, systems don't protect children. Vigilant people using effective systems protect children. Rica's case has improved both elements of that equation. Rica Rountree's story delivers hard truths about child protection in America. Every system designed to shield her failed at critical moments, yet her tragedy has catalyzed meaningful change. The lessons from her case offer a roadmap for preventing similar failures. First, recognize that abuse rarely begins with extreme violence. It escalates gradually with subtle warning signs preceding serious harm. The early indicators in Rica's case: unexplained bruises in unusual locations, sudden behavioral changes, flinching when touched, excessive fatigue, and declining academic performance, represent red flags that demand attention. Second, understand that abusers often isolate their victims while maintaining positive public images. Baker's strategy of presenting differently to teachers and neighbors while terrorizing Rica behind closed doors reflects a common pattern. When a child suddenly becomes less visible in the community or withdraws from activities they previously enjoyed, concern is warranted. Third, the responsibility for protection extends beyond mandated reporters. While teachers, medical professionals, and social workers have legal obligations to report, every adult who interacts with children shares a moral obligation to remain vigilant. A neighbor's phone call, a relative's unexpected visit, or a community member's question might interrupt abuse patterns before they prove fatal. If you suspect a child faces danger, act immediately. Contact local child protective services or call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-4-A-CHILD, 1-800-4-22453. Reports can be made anonymously, and you don't need conclusive proof. Reasonable suspicion is sufficient to trigger an investigation. Remember that multiple reports from different sources increase the likelihood of intervention. For educators and professionals working with children, Rica's case underscores the importance of documentation and persistence. When initial reports don't generate adequate response, escalate concerns to supervisors, contact law enforcement directly, or consult with medical professionals specializing in child abuse. Before we end, I ask you to take 3 actions. Subscribe to this channel for more awareness content that might save lives. Share this video to spread these critical lessons. And finally, comment with one action you'll take to be more vigilant in protecting the children in your community. Rica Rountree's 8 years on Earth ended in pain, but her legacy continues, in every child protected because someone recognized the warning signs and took action. In her memory, let us all become better guardians of childhood innocence. The most fitting tribute to Rica is ensuring no other child suffers her fate when prevention was within reach.